exercises and most of the things that I give you today are going to be sort of fundamental Pilates exercises, and it's about keeping everything quite small as we move through. Okay, so we're going to start up in a standing position, and I'd like you to bring your feet so they are hip distance apart. And we're looking at the bones here, so the bony prominent bits of our pelvis. We want to try and align them to the front, okay, and we're going to just draw imaginary lines down the thigh bones all the way to the floor. We're looking for our feet to be pointing forwards the best we can, as long as it's not causing discomfort for our hips or our knees. We try not to be turned out or turned in. Yeah, so we've got that nice parallel position. And then imagining that our pelvis is like a bucket of water. So we're going to use that analogy today, and we're going to tip the water out the front. Okay, so we're going to come like this, and then we're going to tip the water out the back. Okay, so front and back, trying to just make sure that you keep the upper body as stable as you can with that. So it's looking at that tiny little rock. And when we come down onto the mat, when I say a neutral pelvis, this is where we're going to be. We want to find our neutral position in a standing position first, because obviously we spend so much time in a standing position. So keep that rocking forwards and backwards. And we're just going to exhale as we come forward. So exhale, so breathing out through your mouth and trying to push that pubic bone up to the ceiling, but without altering the shoulders or the rib cage. So have a practice now with your hands on your ribs, taking your hands up onto your rib cage. And as you exhale, can you try and feel your ribs contract? And then we're going to inhale as we go backwards. Yeah. And I want you to expand through your rib cage and try and inflate through the back of your rib cage also. Yeah, so I'm going to really try and exaggerate that as I teach it to you. So exhale. So I'm going to feel my ribs closing in, and also I'm going to start to feel drawing in through my deep tummy muscles, and also a lifting through my pelvic floor as I tuck under. And then when we go backwards, we're going to inhale and inflate through our ribs and try and inflate through our upper back. Okay, which is all very difficult to do when you're trying to talk. So we're now finding a neutral position. So somewhere between that midline, we're not going to go over that too much today. And then we're going to reach one arm up. Now, keeping your pelvis in the neutral position without shifting the weight, we're going to lean up and over. So try not to collapse. We want to go up and across. So notice that my pelvic alignment isn't shifting here. I'm just stretching up through my side. And then what I'm going to do is push my other foot down onto the floor. Okay, so I've got my, so for you, if you're mirroring me, it's going to be your left. I'm going to push my heel down onto the floor and then pull my shoulder away from my ear, but still create lots of space through both sides. And then we're going to come up again the other side. So we're reaching, that pelvic alignment is staying nice and square. We're going to reach up and over, keeping the weight centered. Yeah, and then I'm going to push the weight just a little bit onto that outside foot and try and lift up through this inside side. And then I'm going to pull my shoulder away from my ear. And then coming back up this time. As you come over, think about that weight staying on that outside foot. Now that's just going to keep you more even. And we're going to lift up through that underside arm and lower it down. Now, if you're able to, we're going to lift the arm and exhale, come all the way up. If that's too much, you go back to where we were before. We're going to reach up and over, slide the shoulder around, down away from the ears, sink through your heels, and then exhale, reach that arm up. If it adds too much load, keep it down or just halfway. And then now we're going to stay up here as we come over to the side with double arms this time. And you're going to go back to one of those other versions if this doesn't feel right for you. So I'm still keeping that 100% weight through both feet. So that's 50-50 on each foot. Exhale, come back up. Remember, if it's too much load, you just change it. Over the other side. So reach, really grow tall through both sides. Breathing out, coming up. Now we're going to interlink the hands behind. I'm just going to kneel so you can see me. Interlink the hands behind my head. And I'm actually going to push my elbows back and just push my chest up and forwards. Yeah. So I'm just going to look up, but not up, if that makes sense. So up and in front. So I've got a really bad cramp in my foot. Just going to have to tuck my toes. And then we're going to come back, and without sort of tucking our chin to our chest, we're just going to round forwards a little bit. So coming up. And this time, try and think about keeping your pelvis still as you do this movement. So it's actually just from the upper part of your back. So we're increasing a little bit of awareness about how our body's moving, and then exhale as we come forwards. I'm not pulling on the head, I'm just supporting and making sure that my neck is doing what my upper back's doing. So one more each way. We're going to inhale back and then coming forwards. Okay, now from here, bring your hands to the center of your chest, and your palms are going to be in. I'm going to get you to take your feet now so they are hip width apart. Sorry, shoulder width apart. Yeah, so they're much, much, much wider. So they're sort of, if you think about creating a box shape. Now, pelvis stays facing the front. You're trying to keep that alignment so your hips are in that neutral position. But now we don't want to take the pelvis with us. We don't want to be doing this. Yeah, so I'm going to take my hands, I'm going to push my thumbs into my sternum, and as I inhale to prepare, I'm going to exhale and twist through the upper body only. Now you can sort of feel the sensation of pushing the opposite hip around and away from you, so that the rotation comes from the upper body only. Now, if you're thinking you're staying still, we're going to try something else by taking your hands onto your rib cage, and as you rotate, just see if you can, just for a moment, look down and see what's going on. So imagine that you have two headlights onto your hip bones, and your headlights are pointing towards me, okay, and they're not going to move. So those headlights are staying absolutely still. Now, if you know 100% that you're able to do that, you're going to take your arms out into a wide position. Imagine you've got hold of a broom handle, and then you're going to exhale and rotate again. So if you're turning around looking behind you, like loads and loads and loads of movement, the chances are is that you're using your pelvis and your knees to rotate around. Okay, now imagine you've got hold of a broom. So the arms stay level with your shoulders. So we've got wrist, shoulder, shoulder, wrist. And one more each way. So this will feel super, super easy in terms of actually what we're doing. It won't feel difficult, but we're just trying to increase a little bit of awareness about how our body moves in a lateral side bend and a rotation. So we can really start to isolate and bring a bit of mobility in. Okay. So standing, we're going to take our way down to a mat, but we're going to start with a full roll down. Kelly, this might need to be done with really bent knees. Okay, so you're going to see how you go. You might just want to keep a total flat back and bend the knees and come down here. Make sure you squeeze your bum, make it into more like a dead hinge. Okay, so we're going to tuck the chin, start to curl, breathe out. And imagine you're a puppet on a string, you're hanging through your belly button, and you're scooping that string up to the ceiling and letting the head hang. And then you're going to take an inhale when you're down in this position, wherever your hands may be. And as you exhale, pull that belly button up to the ceiling and engage your glutes. And try and curl and stack one vertebrae up on top of each other at a time. So we really center and stack everything once more again into that neutral position. So only 3 of those, and the 4th one's going to be down onto the mat. So a little bit quicker this time. Exhale, Burning over, just to where you feel comfortable. And then inhale into the upper back, exhale, rounding all the way back up again. So last full one, yeah. Breathing out, engaging through that pelvic floor a little bit as you feel the hip bones sort of coming together and the pelvic floor lifting up. And then exhale, pull from that belly button. Yeah, really engage the core and the pelvic floor and the glutes. They all work really well together. And then this one, we're going to find our way down onto the mat. So we're going to walk ourselves into a tabletop position. Now I have a kneeling pad that I use for my knees. The majority of you are probably on carpet. I'm on a hard floor with a thin mat, so I like to use my kneeling pad. So if you need something for your knees, just pop it underneath. And we're going to find a 4-point kneeling position. So my wrists are going to be directly underneath my shoulders, and my thighs are going to be vertical. So my knees are directly underneath my hips. Now we're going to isolate and think about what we did in a standing position as we tuck our pelvis. So I'm going to keep my upper body as still as I can and just move through my pelvis, exactly like we did in standing. Now, if you're not sure, have a look. So I'm going to exhale, tuck my pelvis under. So it's such a tiny movement. Yeah. And then you're going to inhale and tuck it up. So I'm not moving through my whole back here, doing all sorts of weird things. I'm really trying to engage my core as I keep a nice neutral spine, and exhale, tuck that pelvis. So imagine that you've got a string between both your hip bones and they're pulling in together. And then inhale, come back, and it's almost like you're trying to stick your bottom up to the ceiling, and then you're trying to touch your pubic bone to your belly button. That's the sort of sensation that we're feeling. Now, if everyone can pull their shoulders away from your ears, yeah, try and lengthen through the crown of your head. And make sure you've got no winging into your shoulder blades. So we're sort of pushing the heels of our hands into the floor. And then what we're going to do is tuck the pelvis under, like we just did, and then tuck our toes. Now, as you're tucking your toes, you're now going to be onto the balls of your feet. You're going to keep that tuck position and just see how much you can push into the balls of the feet as you sort of lift your knees and push yourself backwards a tiny bit. So your knees are lifting, you're trying to push into your shoulders, and you're actually coming onto the balls of your feet, and then rock forwards and put your knees down. So that, just do a couple more of those. That sort of feeling of lifting with that tucked pelvis. I'm not sort of asking you to round lows into the lower back, but I'm just getting you to come into a little bit of what's called a posterior tilt. So you can really feel how that should feel when we perform, quite a lot of the moves that we do. So it's that small engagement through the lower abdominals. Yeah. Okay, so bring yourself back to that tabletop position. Get a little bit of wrist relief if you need it. So a few wrist circles. And then we're going to add on. So from that tabletop position, this time we're staying completely in our neutral pelvis. So that's no saggy backs, yeah, no winging shoulder blades. We're going to keep nice and strong. My shoulders are pulling away from my ears. I've got a gentle spiraling through my shoulders as I sort of turn my elbow eyes to the front a little tiny bit, and that's going to activate underneath my armpits. I'm then going to think of that visualization of pulling my belly button just up a tiny bit, not a lot, but I want more of a pelvic floor and those hip bones coming in together. Now, keeping that stable position, I'm going to take a big inhale through my nose. And as I exhale, without moving my hips, I'm going to take one leg back behind me. Now the foot is staying on the floor. And I'm going to inhale, bring that knee back in. Now this is super, super, super controlled. change side, exhale, slide the leg along the mat. So even those that come to my classes and who are used to doing full Superman, can you stick with this one today? Yeah, just stick with it. Concentrate on the breath, concentrate on the pelvic floor recruitment, and just take that time to build this foundation. So it's really good to set that stable base so that when we move on, yeah, we are 100% happy. Now the leg's going to come back. This time I'm going to really flex through the foot. So I'm actually tucking my toes under more and I'm pushing my heel backwards. I'm trying to push into the back of my knee crease, and I'd like you to make sure that that doesn't make your hips start to lift. So just by that small movement, you should be able to feel more in the glute. So push the heel back, pull the toes, you might get stretched into the calf. Then we're going to hold that position without shifting the weight through your arms, and just see where you can lift that leg to without changing any of the architecture of your body. So I'm pushing through my heel, I'm lifting, and this is quite a challenge. Yeah, it is quite a challenge. It's quite a challenge for me, so it'll be a challenge for you. Yeah, keeping those hips nice and stable, and then bringing that knee down. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So sliding the leg back, sliding it back, keeping the toes on the floor, but pulling the toes in towards you. So you're actively pushing that heel away. Now make sure the back hasn't started to sag. Make sure the weight is still totally 50-50 through the upper body. Push through the heel, keep the hips aligned, and then lift that leg. Now, as soon as you lift the leg, don't let that back arch. Keep the pelvis nice and stable. And then you're going to bring the knee in. Okay, take a breather there. And that's all we're going to do with that today. And we're going to come and lie on to our side next. So working on a very small movement, just trying to get the glute nice and active. Yeah. Okay, so laying on your side. Let me just check, is there anyone who? No. So Victoria, you know how to modify for this, yeah? So we're going to lay on our side, and I'm actually going to have my arm over my head, my underneath arm, but I'm going to make sure that my shoulder is sliding down, so we haven't got blocks or anything for the majority of us, so I'm just going to use my arm. I'm sliding my shoulder down, I'm going to stack my shoulders on top of each other, and I'm going to stack my hips. So everything is really aligned, and I'm taking my legs back a long way behind me. So I'm looking for my heels to be sort of right behind my knees, so they're in line with my hips and my shoulders. Yeah. Now that's going to make me wobble a little bit, and that is fine. Okay. So what we're going to do now is pinch our heels together and use our top hand, and I'm going to open my top knee and roll all the way backwards. So I'm going to roll backwards as I open that top knee. I'm rolling on my shoulder, my head's coming over, and then I'm going to come back up to the front and stack everything up on top of each other. Now we're going to do one more like that. So just roll back, open the knee, try and use your obliques to sort of help stabilize you a bit. Yeah, and we don't want to roll all the way back, and then come up to the front. Now bring the knees slightly further forward, so they're about 45 degrees. This time you're going to flex the feet, keep the hips on top of each other, and now that rolling backwards was just to explain to you what I don't want, okay? So this time we're going to push the front hand down into the mat quite heavily. So we're inhale, we're exhale, push the heel of the hand in. My heels are staying together as I'm going to lift up through the knee, and I'm going to frog my feet out. I'm going to pause in that position, and I'm going to keep that hand pushing into the floor. And I'm going to inhale and come back down. Now I want you to feel a really nice activation through the deep glute. So sort of on the side, on the top of the hip. Now remember, I explained to you that I didn't want you to roll backwards. So this is keeping it really isolated, and we're going to use the opposition of pushing our hand into the mat to really find that recruitment. So we inhale, we exhale, we're going to flex the feet. You're going to push your hands into the mat, no rolling backwards through the hips. And have a pause. And then inhale, this time don't touch the knees together. Exhale, come up again. Now you're either going to stay in this this movement, so you might know it as clam or oyster. I always call it oyster, but otherwise we're going to lift that leg up. Make sure the architecture of the body doesn't change, and bring the heel down and close. So up, lift, close, down. So you'll notice that when I'm lifting, my knee is not facing forwards. I'm in external rotation through my hip. Yeah, so I'm moving through. You're going to feel it at the top of the hip and into the glute. But make sure you squeeze that heel together as you come back down every time. Now try and imagine that the knees aren't touching each other. We've just got another 2. Okay, and keep using that hand for the opposition. Yeah, breathing out. Really working on the side of that glute. And then bring the knee down and just give yourself a little pat round. Now the top hand is going to reach up and over, as long as this doesn't make you too wobbly. If it does, you're going to take it back onto your hip or onto your front. So our job is to stay stable. We also want to make sure that our spine stays in a neutral position, and that's laterally, so from side to side, so we're not just bananaing our spine down to the mat. Yes, we've got an elevation, so we're actually lifting through our side. It's totally irrelevant if your skin is touching. Yeah, we're all built different sizes, so it doesn't matter if you haven't got physical gap there, but it's feeling like your spine is nice and straight. Now that arm is overhead. We're going to use the bottom leg to stabilize as we take the top leg out. So if you imagine like I'm a big torpedo here, yeah, and I'm reaching through the top hand and reaching through the bottom leg, and I'm going to flex my foot. Now, with this position, I want you to move from your hip bone and move your thigh, so you're internally and externally rotating your leg. Now, if you can see what I'm doing, I'm actually moving from the thigh bone, so the ball and socket joint that's in my pelvis, that's where I'm moving from, not from my ankle, okay, not trying to lead with my knee, but it does help if you visualize where your knee is going, yeah, and you're pushing through the heel. And again, I'm not rolling forwards or backwards. So we're going to find the position where our knee is facing forwards. Yeah, so our thigh bone is nice and neutral, and you're going to flex your foot. Now it's up to you if you keep your hand overhead. Try and imagine that gap underneath your side, flexing your foot heavily and pushing into the back of the knee crease, and seeing if you can take that leg back behind you without, again, altering the architecture of your body. So the pelvis stays still. Yeah, now push through the heel and see if you can feel an engagement into the big muscle of your bottom. We're not arching through the back here. Now, I'm going to take my hand onto my hip so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take my leg forwards now. I'm pointing my toe and I'm taking my leg forwards. I'm trying to push my bottom cheek backwards so that I can keep my pelvis neutral. I'm going to flex my foot and sweep that leg back to where we just started. So back behind you into that extension. Yeah, so we're taking that leg behind, but my pelvis is staying so still. Okay, so this is leg kick. Use the bottom leg to stabilize you. Keep that pelvis still. So if it helps you, take your hand onto your hip. Yeah, and move that leg forwards and backwards, trying to really push through the knee crease. Yeah, so we're really building that good strength around the hips. Yeah, 2 more, and then we're going to swap to the other side. That's it, good stuff. Okay. Oh, actually, no, we won't swap yet. Sorry. Come over so your knee is on top now. So I'm rolling my weight forwards, and my bottom leg is going to be straight here. So my bottom leg is straight, and this time I'm going to work on the underside leg. So I have shifted my pelvis, I have shifted my upper body, and I'm just going to sort of come into like a little nice sleepy position. And then my underneath foot is again going to flex, and I'm going to see if I can lift that underneath leg. Now the leg is in line, so I've got shoulder, pelvis, knee and ankle. And I'm going to turn that leg now so the heel points up to the ceiling, the toes point down to the floor. And I'm going to exhale and lift the leg, inhale to lower. Now, it doesn't matter how high the leg lifts, but again, what we're looking for is working on the breath out as we lift, breath in as we come down, trying to keep that foot nice and active, because that's really going to help engage through the inner thigh, and also turning the foot around. So breathing out. Now you're going to feel this around your groin area and also in the inner thigh. So try not to let that leg creak forwards, because that's what it will try and do. So you want to try and maintain that the leg stays as neutral as you can. Excellent. So a couple more, and then we will swap to the other side. Brilliant. So over we go, so we can repeat that on the other side. So we're going to start with those oyster rollbacks. Yeah, so the setup is going to be arm out in front of you, hand out in front. Now remember, we started with the legs right behind us, and we're going to do that again, even though you know why we're doing it, because I want you to understand and start to get awareness of what your body is doing. So really trying to take those feet behind, and then rolling, opening that knee and taking the leg behind. So I'm actually rolling onto the fleshy part of my bottom, coming in. So we've just got two like that. So you can understand what happens when you roll backwards. You can understand how it feels. Obviously we are exaggerating it quite a lot, but it will just help you to sort of understand where your pelvis is. And then this time, knees are going to come a bit further forwards, heels are together, we're going to flex the feet. And then hand is going to come onto the mat. So we're exhaling, coming up. So no rocking back through the hips this time. If you can feel it more into your thigh, your heels will go a little bit further backwards. So if you feel it more into the front of your leg, you need to feel it here. So just play around with the position a little bit. It generally means your heels need to go a bit further behind you. So it's exhale, flex the feet, pushing up, checking those hips aren't rolling backwards, and we've got that imaginary lift through our side as well. Yeah, so it's very small, but very isolated movements. Get those little pauses like we did last time as well. So push into the mat, work on that opposition of the heel of the hand, so you really feel it. And then for those that want a little bit more, you're going to be here, lift, come down, close, hover the knee, but keep the heels together. That's it, nice, well done. Open, lift. Excuse my clicky hip if you can hear that. So we'll do another 2 of these. That will take us 4 and 4. And last one. I got terrible cramp today, I do apologise. Right, okay, so the next one, we're taking the leg out away from us. So if I was to look down my body, I wouldn't really be able to see my leg because it's so in line. Yeah, if you can see your foot, it's way too far forwards. So keeping those hips stacked on top of each other, and then bringing the leg behind you. So we're working on a little bit of extension. So you're pushing your heel away from you, pushing into the back of the knee crease, but without rolling back and without arching the back. So 2 very, very different things. Yeah, it's quite a small movement. And then from there, use the hand to support you, or you've got that hand overhead like we did last time. And then taking that leg forwards, flexing the foot, taking it back behind you. Now the whole of the trunk and the pelvis stays still. So the movement, if you were to bring your leg up like this, yeah, I'm taking my pelvis with me. So I'm actually tucking my pelvis under. So if you've got very open hamstrings, yeah, some of you will be able to get your leg higher, but I'm not interested how high the leg comes. I'm interested in where the position of the pelvis is. So it's all about that neutral pelvis. So if we can train our body when we're working on movements and muscular strength, where our pelvis is to support our pelvis, then it's going to keep our spine in a really neutral, safe position when we're standing, when we're lifting, when we're running, when we're jumping, because we all do that lots and lots. Don't we, Victoria? Miss Marathon lady. Okay, so taking that heel back, making sure that the glute is nice and active. We've just got a couple more here. And you're going to feel it all around the top of the hip. So last one, pointing forwards, flexing back. Excellent. Then bringing the knee over and flexing that underside foot. So I've taken my hips with me and I've taken that top arm with me as well. Bottom leg, push through the heel, lift, and then pointing the toes down to the mat and heel up, and we're going to lift and lower. Now you shouldn't feel any discomfort into your back when you're lifting and lowering this leg. You shouldn't feel any adjustment through, you know, like the head going or anything like that. It's just that underneath leg that is working. If you feel anything else other than the inner thigh and the groin and a little bit of stabilizing from the rest of your body, then you're going to keep it much, much smaller. Okay, work with the breath. Exhale to lift, inhale to come down. That's it. So we've probably got about another 3. Now in my normal classes, I don't do all the exercises with you. I teach too many classes a week to do loads and loads and loads of reps, and also I want to see what you're doing. So I tend to do a couple, and then I'll pick on you. Okay, brilliant. Come onto your back, bring your knees into your chest, and have a little rock from side to side. And have a massage through the spine. It might benefit you as well. Just open the knees and draw circles on the ceiling. So just open and close, and bring a little bit of movement into the hips where you've been quite stuck and quite robotic. So just free off that movement. Maybe a little rock from side to side. So we also want really good mobility in our pelvis as well. Now finish with your feet on the floor, and your feet are going to be on the floor. So they're into that neutral position, the same as they were when we were standing, and they're hip width apart. So there's about 6 inches for most people, about just over a fist's distance. Yeah, so we're looking for the toes to be pointing away, not rolling in, and the knees need to be following what the hips are doing. Now we're going to start with that pelvic tilt again, exactly like we did when we were standing and when we were into the 4-point tabletop position. So this time, inhale, exhale, breathe out and tuck your pelvis. So only your pelvis is going to move. You're going to sort of push your low back into the mat, and then you're going to inhale, rock yourself back to that neutral position. Now you can use your hands on top of your pelvis if it helps you to work on that tuck. Yeah, so exhale. And feel like you're drawing your heels of your hands in together, and your fingertips are sort of moving up towards your thumbs. So it's almost like you're squeezing everything in and up. And then rock to neutral again. So exhale. Now what we're doing here feels like you're not doing very much probably, but actually we are doing a great deal. So we're working on the alignment of the pelvis, we're working on the breath, we're synchronizing our pelvic floor and our diaphragm so that our core can work really well. And this is so important. It's one of the massive things where everything stems from, from our center. Okay, so one more like that. So we build strength from the inside out in Pilates. So this is really what we're looking for, building from the inside. Exhale. Now the next one, we're going to get that tuck, and then we're going to start to tuck and continue to roll the hips up. So we are into a bridge position. Now you might need to just adjust your feet a little bit. So I don't want your feet underneath, right underneath towards you. They need to be slightly away from your knees, or your shins need to be vertical, but not so the knees are pushing over the toes. And then we're going to roll back down again. So think each vertebrae just touching the mat one at a time, making sure that we're trying to be as smooth on the way up as we are on the way down. And again, so inhale to prepare, exhale, curling all the way up. Now just pause at that high position and check that your ribs aren't sort of pushing up to the sky. So we have a rib cage that's nice and neutral, and actually your pelvis is neutral again. Yeah, so our hip bones are totally parallel. So one day someone's going to design a spirit level on some leggings. I'm sure they are. Okay, and then come all the way down, and we're going to go again. So inhale to prepare, exhale, roll up. Now you're either going to stick with that or we're staying at the top, and we're going to see if we can pick up one heel, place it down, pick up the other heel, make sure there's no shift through the body, so we're not dipping our hips either side, and then roll back down. Now this time we're going to see if we can actually elevate through one heel as we come up. So we'll all start with our left. Otherwise, if you're feeling that that's enough, you're just going to stay with that normal spine curl. Elevate with your left heel, curl up, keep those hips nice and even, and then exhale, rolling back down. So right heel this time. Inhale to prepare, exhale, tuck the pelvis, roll the spine up one vertebra at a time, keep the hips nice and even, the glutes are working, and the core is nice and connected. Exhale, roll down. Okay, both heels this time. Inhale, exhale, rolling up, pushing those knees away from you, pulling that rib cage in. Exhale, roll down. Take the arms up to the ceiling now. We're going to have our thumbs so they're pointing over our head, palms so they face in. Heels are staying up. We're going to walk the feet out 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches away from us. So the further you walk your feet out, the more challenging this is going to be. If it's too much, rein it back to one of the other options. Keep the heels lifted. Inhale, exhale, tuck the pelvis, rolling up. Making sure that that rib cage doesn't lift. We're going to stay up at the top. Keep everything aligned as we float the arms over our heads. Bringing them back. Rolling back down again. Now, if that's enough for you, stay there. Otherwise, take your feet a little bit further away from you. I suggest you bring your heels down for this one unless you enjoy hamstring cramp. Okay, but you're welcome to try it if you wish. So inhale, exhale, coming up, finding that high position. Now try and draw the heels in towards your bottom. So you feel like instead of the heels are sort of pushing away from you, try and draw your heels to your glutes and push your hip bones up. Squeeze your bottom as though you're squeezing a 50-pound note between your bum cheeks and float your arms overhead. Then we're going to come back all the way down and bring your knees into your chest. So simple spine curl, just with some alterations. So you can see how one simple move can be adapted for, you know, for different muscular groups and also different levels. Right, feet are going to come onto the floor. You're taking your ankles together this time, but the knees are going to come out to the side. Now, as the knees are coming out to the side, make sure that that back doesn't start to arch, okay? So try and make sure that you stay as neutral as you can through the pelvis. Another big one here is to pelvis push up to the ceiling. So everyone bring their knees back up, take their hands onto the top of their pelvis, so heels of the hands, and your fingers are going to be on your pubic bone. Bring your ankles together, and then let the knees roll out, making sure that there's no change. No change. No change. Then your heels are going to push together, just like we did in that oyster. And in this position, we're going to work on the breath. So we're inhaling. As we exhale, feel the sensation of your heels pushing in together. Now, it's not a big movement. Try not to start to wiggle all over the place. Just get that gentle feel of drawing the heels in, and then feel like you're drawing them up towards your pubic bone. And then inhale to release. Okay, so keep the hands on top of your hips. Now, this time, try and imagine that we're drawing the heels up as well as pushing them in, all together. So inhale, exhale, heels together, drawing them in and up. Now I'm hoping that you're going to feel activity down beneath your belly button and above your pubic bone. That's where I'm hoping that you're going to feel this. Try not to get it too much into the inner thighs around the groin. So if you're starting to bring those knees up, yeah, keep it a bit smaller. Now one more. As you breathe out, heels are pushing together, but they're also drawing up. And then release the hands down to the mat beside you. Now, that is the reason why I've got your legs like this, is just because it helps to switch off your hip flexors, which are at the top of your thighs, yeah, and they can really take over from your deep abdominal muscles that we're trying to reach. So we're now going to take the knees up and do exactly the same thing, but with our legs in a different position. So my feet are parallel. I'm going to inhale through my nose. I'm keeping my hands onto my pelvis. And as I exhale, I'm going to do exactly what I just did, which was breathe out, draw up, try and feel the sensation of your heels pulling up just a tiny bit, sort of sliding along the mat so you have that engagement, and you're working on that deep core again. That deep, you're working on your transverse abdominis and all around your pelvic floor, yeah, and that's where we're looking for. Now, if you're really struggling to get that, you're going to carry on with that. If you're okay with that, we're taking our hands, we're going to interlink them behind our head. And at no time are we going to pull on the back of the neck. So we're trying to elongate through our spine, right from our tailbone to the crown of our head. As we exhale, I would like you to imagine you've got a string onto your sternum that's lifting you up to the ceiling. So this is not from our chin. It's not from our shoulders. We're not rounding our shoulders in. Think about your breastbone just being lifted. This will make the back of your head lift slightly, and it will make your shoulders lift slightly. Now there's no change through the lower part of the body, apart from working on that pelvic floor and breath where we've been working. So hands behind the head if you can, yeah, just to support the neck. Okay, so inhale, exhale. Remember, it's that string onto your sternum as we lift. So onto the sternum. Now, if you start to feel activity at the top of your thighs, you're going to go back to that butterfly leg position and do exactly the same thing. Yeah? So you'll feel it's easier to get that recruitment for most people with the knees apart, just because other things don't start to kick in. Yeah? So up. Remember, it's a chest lift, not a sit-up. Get a sit up out of your head. Make sure that when you come up, your pelvis is still in a neutral position. Yeah? So I want you to feel it quite low down where your tummy muscles are supporting your pelvis to keep you in that neutral position. Okay, we're going to lift up through one leg. Now, as you lift up through the leg, my knee is going to be over my hip. And this is going to shift me off slightly because obviously I'm only lifting up through one side. And we're going to repeat the same thing. So try and imagine that your shin is parallel to the ceiling, your knee is directly over your hip bone and your thigh is vertical. So same thing, inhale to prepare, exhale, chest lift. No movement in that knee, no movement in the pelvis, come back down. Now, for those who are used to my classes, I want you to take the knee out on a 45-degree angle. If you're new today, you're going to stay with your knee up. Check the other knee hasn't opened as well. You are one-sided. Exhale, lift. See what happens with the other leg because it's going to try to go out to the side. You're also going to try your hardest not to roll and lift up through that hip. So the pelvis stays neutral. We're using really fine movements to work at keeping that leg where it is. Yeah, keeping the pelvis where it is. Okay, bring that leg down. I'm going to swap to the other side. So just about 4 or 5 on each leg. Taking that other leg up. Keeping the hands linked behind the head. Remember, we're not pulling on the neck. It's a chest lift. So exhale, that sternum is reaching up towards the ceiling. I'm not leading with my chin. So keep your head in line with your upper back. Yeah, so there should be no chin to chest. I shouldn't see anyone with chin to chest because that's not what we're doing. That's why we're supporting the head. Then, for my regulars, you're going to take that knee out to the side and don't let the hip start to shift. Exhale. Coming up and down. That's it. So exactly the same. Feel how hard the other side of your body has to work to compensate for the weight of this lever. And we haven't even got the leg long. So imagine how much weight having the leg long will have to challenge our tummy muscles. So last one. And then have a little rest. Bring your arms to the side. Just rock your knees from side to side a little bit. And release. So again, we've been quite robotic through those movements. There's never enough time. I haven't got through half of what I wanted to teach you today. Okay, so we're going to look at one more move. And again, this is going to be in this position. Now, I'm going to take my first leg that I did up to a tabletop position. So this is called a single knee fold position or a single tabletop or whoever you're taught by. Okay, we perhaps use a different name. So from that position, I'm then going to curl up. Now this is going to look very different to the last one we did. If you need to support the head, you'll support the head. But again, it's not about tucking the chin to our chest. We're elongating through the back of our neck. But I'm going to take my hands down now to the side of my hips. And I'm going to straighten my arms and sort of shrug my shoulders away from my ears a little bit. Yes, I'm trying to reach further towards my feet. I'm going to inhale to prepare. And as I exhale, I'm going to nod my chin and come up. So I'm looking now sort of towards my knee. And again, I'm not really trying to change the shape of my body. Yeah, so exhaling, reaching, hovering those arms. And we're going to do 4 on each side, just because there isn't much time to do 8. Okay, so reach, breathe out. Now remember all those things that I taught you Also, try and make sure that you're isolating now as you reach up and that knee isn't starting to come towards you. Now also try and make sure that it's not your hip flexor at the top of your thigh that's doing all that work. I want you to feel it in your thigh, the whole thigh, a little bit in the hip flexor, in the sides, yeah, but make sure it's not all coming from that hip flexor at the top to bring that leg in. So let's change to the other side. Now, we're only human, so chances are you've done the side that feels more natural to you. Yeah, so just make sure that your alignment's really good for this side. Exhale, come up, reach, inhale, come down. So another 3. Exhale, come up, inhale down. 2 more. Exhale up. Yeah, make sure we're not pulling onto the neck at all. Yeah, if you have decided to take your hands behind your head, and then coming back down and bring your knees in. So your knees are coming into your chest. You have a little rock from side to side. Now usually we would work on a full range of planes of movement. So we'd be looking at also the posterior chain of our body, our upper back as well. But I've run out of time today. So we're going to come into some stretches. Now we're going to find a seated position. So any way that works for you to sit, it can be cross-legged, but if you do sit cross-legged, make sure you don't always get into the same cross. Yeah, it can be long legs or however's comfortable for you. And then we're going to take one arm across the body, shoulders a little bit of a stretch. Just making sure we're not pulling onto the elbow and also checking that that shoulder isn't sort of shrugging right up to the ear. So also I'm going to stay as square as I can. So this isn't about rotation, how far you can reach. Yeah, so we're just coming around and feeling a stretch into the upper back. So I hope you enjoyed that today. Just like I say, just going through the fundamental exercises, a few pointers, learning how to use our breath with exercise, engaging our core, and hopefully where you can actually feel things working a little bit. Now interlink your hands behind your back. We're just going to push our chest forwards and get stretched through the front of our body. And then a big reach, so let's stretch out for our side. So we're going to reach up and over, just take that hand wherever's good for you. But we're trying not to sort of come forwards or backwards here, so straight up and over. Keeping the weight nice and even through our pelvis. And also creating space in our underside. So this shoulder's pulling, it's not like this. Yeah, it's pulling away and I'm trying to really lengthen everywhere. And other side. So reach, nice big stretch. So imagine you're between 2 panes of glass and we're coming up and over, and you can only go just to the side. We can't twist here. So try everyone to pull those shoulders away from your ears to get that maximum stretch between rib and hip. Excellent. And then we're going to go across and to the front. Kelly, you're going to go to the side again for me, darling. So we're going to go across and front. And other side. So across and front, just sort of stretching out through the side, down the lower back as well, but not in the middle. You're going to feel this down the side. Now we're staying in a seated position. You're going to bring one foot into the thigh. If this gives you any knee pain, just give me a thumbs up and I'll give you an alternative. Okay, yeah, so the foot's coming into the thigh and keeping the hips nice and still. You're just going to sort of very gently, just add a little bit of pressure onto that knee. Yeah, very gently. If that feels okay, we're going to take the foot up onto the thigh and do the same thing. Yeah, just very gently. So this is like a seated pigeon. Normally we do this laying onto our back. We're going to do it seated today. So watch the foot doesn't start to all curl around like this. Yeah, and you're sort of bending through the ankle. So you want to make sure the whole of the ankle is onto the thigh and also flexing the foot. That's just going to help really protect through the knee. Now take that foot across to the floor. So the foot has come over and across. If you need to, it's going to be more down towards the ankle. Otherwise, you're going to shift that foot up. See if you can put the foot on the floor. And then you're going to twist around the opposite way. So it's the opposite way. So my knee is sort of coming across my body and I'm going to wrap and just look over my shoulder and just pull that knee in and feel a stretch down the side of your hip. So it's almost like you're twisting in two directions here. So now we're going to take the hand onto the outside of the foot. So my hand's going to come onto the outside of the foot. If you're further down, just take the hand onto the thigh, and you're just going to do this. Okay, if you can reach the foot, we're going to take the hand out and just lift the heel a little tiny bit. Make sure you're not starting to round through your back. So hold the thigh if you need to. Yeah, and if you're happy with this and you can straighten the leg, you're going to straighten. But if it starts to make you hunch, I don't want the leg straight. Yeah, so you're just going to pull that leg across your body, try and keep your pelvis nice and square so you can feel it down the side of the leg. Keep the chest nice and proud. Like I say, if it feels okay to straighten, you'll straighten. But we're not forcing anything. Stretching is never about forcing, but just feel it down the side, into the hip a little bit. And then release, and we'll swap to the other side. So we've got a nice straight leg. We're starting with this one or this one. Just remembering that the foot is nicely flexed and you're trying to get that whole ankle onto the knee. If you can't do that, then just stick to this one. Okay, and just teasing that knee down to the mat a little bit, keeping your pelvis square. So if you're sort of shifting on your, skewing your spine and everything like that, we're really looking on keeping everything square. And I know I've run over a little bit, so almost there. Bring that foot over and then either just helping that knee across as you come into a little bit of a twist, or you can hook and look over. So it depends on your flexibility. Yeah, and just making sure nothing causes you pain. So you're twisting in a way that feels unnatural, basically. If it feels really easy, go the other way. Yeah, so and then holding on to the outside of the foot or the thigh, and then bringing that leg up. Now you're aiming to keep the pelvis as square as you can. Don't worry if you can't reach the foot, you might be onto the shin, or like I said, the foot might even be down. You might be just pulling that knee across a little tiny bit. Only straightening the leg if you can keep your chest up. So you're holding, your chest is square now to the front, and you're holding that leg and feeling a stretch into the side. One more stretch. Ankles on the floor, feet together, and let those knees sort of butterfly out to the side. Now make sure you're not rounding forwards like this. If you are, we're going to put our hands behind us so you can push your chest forwards like this. Yeah, so put your fingers behind you and that will help you sit up straight. I was exaggerating a little bit how I was sat. So you're trying to sort of hold on to the feet and sit up as straight as you can. Using a wall is a really good one for this as well. So just sitting against the wall. So we want to keep our spine nice and neutral and feel a stretch into the inner thighs here. And I'm going to leave it there. I've definitely not given you everything that I wanted to give you, including stretches. But I hope that gave you a little taster, and really lovely to see so many of you this morning. So thank you. If you've got any questions, feel free to take your sound off and hang on for a bit, or you can just hit leave meeting, and thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. So lovely to see you. Thank you.